Hello gamers, it's the week of Halloween, if I'm able to get these videos out in time that is. And I say this as I'm releasing 2 videos this Halloween for 2 different types of horror games, that being jump scare horror and psychological horror. And in this video we are going to be talking about my least favourite of the 2, that being jump scares. But since I don't enjoy this genre as much, I wanted to find a game that's a little bit different. So after a little bit of research, I landed on playing the game Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion. So how is this game different from the genre? Well, it's mainly that it has a cutesy art style, especially towards the start of the game, still keeping its cutesy look later in the game, just getting a little bit more scary, I guess. Now, the game kind of has 2 releases, that being the original version, which was originally called Spooky's House of Jump Scares, but was changed due to trademark/legal reasons. But then a HD version named Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion HD Renovation was released. And well, for some reason I decided to play the OG version instead of the HD remake. Now I could say that's because the original was made by the devs at Lag Studios and the remake was made by Albino Moose Games, but according to what little reading I did, it seems they are basically the same team, as there was a split at Lag Studios which birthed 2 other studios. So most of the original team also did the remake, so I guess I played the OG just cause. I don't need a reason, or I guess maybe, just maybe, I started playing the OG version of the game before I knew about the HD remake, but who could really say? But now that we know a little bit about the developers, let's see how the game itself is played. The game's main goal is to escape Spooky's mansion, Spooky being this anthropomorphic ghost girl who checks in on you occasionally and maybe wants to kill you. And in order to escape her house, we need to make our way through its 1,000 rooms, all of which are generated from a pool of hand designed rooms. So you will spend a lot of time in the same looking rooms with a different lick of paint on them, asking yourself if you're even moving forward or just going in some weird distorted circle. And at the start you may even enjoy your time in Spooky's mansion, as these rooms are not that scary, but you would be mistaken. Now yes, in the early rooms you are being jump scared by cutesily drawn clouds and ice cream cones and stuff like that, which you may be able to tell from my mouse movements, but these still got a reaction out of me. But if these cutesy objects make you feel safe, that will quickly change as you make your way deeper into the house, as the cutesiness may stay, but the added gore and fear of the unknown grows in the back of your mind. Also in your mind, you may be wondering, why is Spooky's house built like this, with lots of pointless rooms that loop around themselves and seem to go nowhere? Well, I like to think it was inspired by the real world Winchester House of Mysteries, or Mystery House, I forget what they call it. A house that was apparently designed to keep its owner safe from ghosts. And well, much like my previous Need for Speed video, I'm going to use this segment of the video to talk about the Winchester house and the life of one Sarah Winchester. For those of you who do not know Sarah Winchester or the Winchester house, well, the Winchester house is the house she lived in, but she herself was the wife of one William Winchester, the creator of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, aka the Winchester Rifles. And Sarah's life was surrounded by death, with her husband's company possibly causing more deaths than any other company in the world at the time. And then during her life, a lot of her family would also meet an early or unexpected end. If that was deaths of her sister, her daughter, her father, her mother, her father-in-law, and eventually even her husband. It is believed after all this loss that she went to a psychic medium who told her that people who were killed by her husband's creations were trying to haunt her, and that she needed to build a massive complex house to slow down the spirits. So that's what she did, moving to the other side of the country to San Francisco, where she would use all of the wealth she got from her husband and her mother and build a massive house spanning over 5 floors with hundreds of rooms and thousands of windows and doors, which most famously are features like staircases that lead to the roof, lead to nothing basically, they're blocked off, doors that open to 2-story drops, along with a bunch more odd choices with windows looking into other rooms, and the house itself was under construction from 1885 till Sarah's death in 1922. Now, all of this makes for a great haunted / mysterious house tourist attraction, which is what the house is now. However, a lot of what I said isn't believed to be true, more added / exaggerated on after the fact to help sell tickets to the tourist attraction. Now, did Sarah see a psychic after her husband's passing? Maybe. A lot of people back then saw mediums. It was just sort of a thing they did. It's actually famously a situation where once Harry Houdini died, his wife went to a bunch of mediums to kind of prove they were lying and charlatans. So Harry had told his wife a word that he would tell the medium to tell her to prove if the medium was real or not. And well, to my knowledge, I haven't read up in that story in a while, but to my knowledge, that word was never said. But people did go to mediums a lot. Did she move across the country to escape the ghosts of her husband's company? No, her doctors recommended that she move somewhere warmer for her arthritis. Was the house under construction for a very long time? Yes. Sarah was a massive fan of architecture, with her father being an architect and her husband also sharing a love for architecture. They would work together designing their house over east. Sarah seemingly dealt with her grief by planning and building this house. Was there a lot of odd or strange choices in the building design? Yes, that's because there was never a plan. It was just what Sarah and her building team wanted to build. So a room that has a window looking into another room? Well, that room wasn't originally looking into the other room, was it? It used to be an outwards facing room. But the house grew and grew to a whopping 5 acres in size at one point. And they would build and tear down and rebuild until it was the way Sarah wanted it, or till she couldn't see any more improvements in the design. With famously them building a tower that was taken down and rebuilt 16 times before it was done to Sarah's satisfaction. But none of this explains the doors to 2-floor drops or the stairs that go nowhere or fireplaces that were bricked up so they couldn't be used. But we can look to history for that one. The year 1906 is known for an earthquake that destroyed most of San Francisco, including parts of the Winchester House. When Sarah returned after the earthquake and the fires which happened after the earthquakes, she would have seen large amounts of damage to her masterpiece. And in her weakening health, she didn't have the will to repair or continue building on to the Winchester House. So they would repair the house to the point where it was operational, which led to staircases to nowhere because the roof was just put on top when the missing stories were gone. And for the door with the 2-story drops, well, there was most likely a balcony or maybe a whole section of the house there that was lost in the quake, as the house was hastily fixed and then other construction works would stop on the house. And Sarah would spend the last years of her life living in a completely different house, which stayed normal. Clearly, she didn't think she needed to confuse the ghosts. But also, if you're interested in this story at all from what I just said, I highly recommend you check it out. It's quite an interesting one, even if it's mostly made so that the owners of the house now could sell tours of it. But even then, it's quite a feat of engineering and it just looks massive. And also the legacy of Sarah Winchester's quite an interesting one herself, being known now, not at the time however she was seen as a recluse or shut-in, but it's now known that she had donated millions throughout her life, especially after the quakes, to help the homeless. But She didn't need to build her massive sprawling mansion to confuse ghosts. However, Spooky's house is also not built to confuse ghosts, but to help them, as Spooky traps us in her mansion and tells us that the only way out is to make it through her house. And as we make our way through the rooms, we learn a bit about this location. As it turns out, we are not the first person Spooky has trapped in her maze of horrors. As we make our way through the rooms, finding notes and letters left behind by previous people locked in this labyrinth, talking about how they are feeling trapped and they don't know if they're going anywhere, seemingly walking into the same rooms on loop. And one of them getting so thirsty that they drink a metallic subject that they found in a bottle that they thought at the time was wine. It was not wine. Finding the skeleton of that person and other people throughout the building. Not only that, but you can also find special rooms in the house that add to the game's upsettingly very little lore. You can find a specimen containment area, which you can find notes of researchers asking Spooky for more funds as the containment pods need more power to keep the specimens locked up. When searching deeper into this research lab, well, you can see that a specimen had clearly broken out and killed the researcher and is now attempting to kill you, as I quickly run away. The next room I run into is, for some reason, a school with classrooms. It also reminded me of the school map from Phasmophobia, which brought back a lot of memories. I didn't spend much time in the school, however, as I was attacked by some demon school person and ran away with quick haste. There is also a mansion inside of the mansion where you need to find keys in order to progress to the next room. And this is where I died on this playthrough, unfortunately. I didn't know how to hide, which led to my death. And finally, towards the end of the game, the hallways turn into bloody catacombs. And then there are also some repeating special rooms. So the lab, the catacombs, the mansion, and the school you only see once between certain room numbers. However, these repeating rooms are rooms like the elevator that works as a save location every 100 levels. And there is also an arcade room with 2 playable spooky themed arcades for a little bit of fun between deathly encounters. And then a room with some computer banks that give you some information on the specimens chasing you and also give you an option to edit the house layout. However, unfortunately, these parts of the computers are currently inoperable. So basically, the game's little bits of lore while there are cute things jumping out of you and giving me a heart attack. Oh, and then there's the final boss battle, which I can't show you here, as well I never made it to that point in the game. Maybe one day I'll make it, as I do plan to play this game every spooky season. Play Spooky's game for spooky season makes sense in my head, as I plan on doing 1 run per the season, as I try and maybe finally 1 year make my way all the way to be able to complete the game, and maybe learn how to hide in the process. But if you are interested in the game but don't think you'll ever play it, I recommend you check out the boss battle on YouTube anyways, as it's quite a fun one with a bit of a twist at the end. But as this video is coming to an end, I quickly want to cover the only bug I experienced from this game, that being me getting stuck in an endlessly looping room whilst I was trying to get out. But I think the game bugged out. I don't think this was intended, as there's no way to get further, which was pretty creepy, especially since right before I entered this room, I was being chased by a monster, thinking it could be behind me at any time. I didn't stop running for like 15 minutes straight until I started to think that something was wrong. Then I stood still, I left my room, I had a shower, I did some stuff, I came back, and well, I was still stuck in the endless loop, so I had to reboot. But anyways, that has been it for this video in the Halloween season, as I can finally move on from jump scares and onto the psychological horrors, which is clearly going to be more calming and not more scary at all. So make sure to subscribe so that you can check out the next horror video and maybe even more of my videos if you're interested. Anyways, I've been J104 and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.